Hey everyone!
Hi!
So I'm Chrisy. I'm sure you guys already know us a little bit from social media and our previous videos that we've done, or video, really we haven't really done any videos. But we are actually here to talk to you guys about some interview and, some interview and resume tips. So we actually have a Morgan sample resume to show you, and then talk to you a little bit about our experience from our interviews and give you some advice.
Yeah.
So just to give you guys a little bit of an idea, I have a long background in being a CNA for several years before I became a nurse, and then I started as a new grad in the pediatric float pool. And just recently in August, I ended up switching to another hospital. I'm still in the float pool doing the same thing in pediatrics, but it worked out a little bit better for my schedule. So that's where I'm at right now. And then Morgan.
So I was also a CNA for a long time. That's actually how we met.
Yay.
It was in an assisted living facility. And then after nursing school, I got a job as a new grad in the ED at U. And like I posted earlier today, I actually just took another position a little bit closer to home and with better hours now that I have a little one.
Yep. She's so cute. So I think one of the things that a lot of people ask me, and probably Morgan too, just because we did start as new, that's Morgan's doggies. We did start as new grads in more specialized areas. So I started in pediatrics, and then Morgan started in emergency medicine or in trauma and the ED. So, and a lot of people have asked us, how did you get a job or that position right off the bat? There's so many rumors and myths out there that people say
you have to start a medsurg.
You have to start a medsurg, be there for 2 years, and then then finally apply to a specialty. And we are here to tell you that that is not true. You can get your dream job right out of nursing school. So don't let anyone tell you that you have to work in medsurg before becoming some sort of specialized
But
nurse.
if you want to work in medsurg,
if you want to work in medsurg, please, we need medsurg nurses. That's what they're there for. But if you want to work in those other specialties, we totally encourage you and are here to tell you that it is possible to go. Alright, so sorry the video got cut off, but Morgan also had to bring in little Addie in the video. Look at her. He's a cutie. Okay, so anyway, we were just saying that we encourage you and want to let you know that it is possible to go from a new grad into a specialty if that is your choice. So don't ever be discouraged that you won't be able to find a job in the specialty that you want. So
yeah, so I worked as an NA in the emergency department, so that definitely helped me get a job there as a new grad. But there were also people in my cohort who hadn't worked in the ED before. I know one had done his internship through nursing school in the ED, and a couple others had never been in the ED. They just had an interest in it and they got hired. So you don't have to work in that department, in that specialized department, to get a job there, but it helps. It
does help. And a lot of units now, they want that variety. So they want someone who comes in with a fresh mind that they can mold, not necessarily someone who's had all of this experience in the past, because it doesn't really give them a lot of room to turn them into the nurse that they could see on working on the unit with them. So just something to keep in mind. And then for me, I also, what Morgan was saying, I was also a CNA, but I was also a assistant teacher at some preschools in a Montessori school, because I knew I wanted to be in pediatric at some point. And so anything in related to working with children will help with that pediatric specialty and your resume. So even the smallest littlest things, I know some people volunteer at their church, looking after kids during Sunday school, or even if you had a babysitting job throughout nursing school, anything like that possibly related will help. And then for Morgan, she graduated early from high school and was an EMT for a little while, which obviously correlates with the emergency world.
Forgot about that.
So anything slightly related that you can put on your resume will certainly help. Like they appreciate that experience. So
yeah. So let's see. You got something to contribute?
I guess before the actual interview part, we should probably talk about
The resume.
So I know it's kind of hard to see, but here's just an example of, I should probably cover her personal information, but here's an example of Morgan's resume. Basically, on the side you have her education, certifications, and any committees she was in, and then in the center in bold she has the her experience clearly stated in bold. And so like if I was a hiring manager, I could like look at this and already tell without even anything at all, I can tell that like she is qualified, let's say for an ED position, just because of her experience, and everything is so clearly bolded on here that it's really hard to miss. The hiring managers aren't digging through information to find what they are looking for. And Morgan was saying that I did the same for my resume, but you can
just Google search. Oh goodness. You can just Google search resume template or resume builder or something online. And I might have paid for that one on Etsy like you did. There's a lot of really nice ones on Etsy you can pay a little bit more for, or you can get free ones, and it just sets it up really nicely. And like I'm not really great at the computers or design or anything like that, so it was really nice. And we'll talk about this more a little bit later in the video, but I've been on several interviews in the past month, and I got several comments, like really good feedback about the resume. So
exactly, yeah. And the same thing, I bought mine off Etsy as well. I think it was like $8 or something, and it gives you the template. You can change the colors, you can change the font if you need to, but it's just a way for you to stand out compared to everyone else. I'm sure everyone's just like building it in Word, and which you can totally do yourself. Yeah. I'm usually pretty good at design, but at the time I just wanted something super easy and simple for me to get it done really quickly. But if you're good at design, make something, there's so many examples online, make something that will stand out. Obviously stay within like the muted colors, things like that. Don't go too crazy with colors and font, but just something different.
Yeah. So let's talk about our interviews.
Yeah.
Let's start with you. Let's talk about your new grad interview.
Yeah, so which I know a lot of you guys who follow us are in nursing school or are new grads or just newer nurses like we are. I still consider myself kind of a newer nurse. But so with my her situation was a little bit different because she very easily transitioned from her CNA role or her ED tech role in the ED to her like nurse role. So, but mine, I had like the traditional, like, you start in August, September, whatever, October, and start like frantically looking for jobs at your, senior semester of nursing school. And so one of the big things that hospitals are doing now, once you get the interview, is they absolutely love to ask behavioral questions, behavioral related questions, which we have some examples for you, but they like, for some reason, that's what they do. And personally, in my interview, I probably got asked like 10 or 12 behavioral questions, but I came very prepared. I knew what I wanted to talk about. I came prepared with examples and actually had a notebook writing and I wrote them down what answers I wanted to give them, and I know Morgan did too.
Same thing. My managers made fun of me because they knew me and they didn't ask me anything, but hey, I was prepared.
Yep, and that's what they want to see. Like hiring managers and nurse managers who are interviewing you want to see if you are prepared and ready. They don't want someone who just goes in and wings it, because that could also say a lot about a person. But if you go in and wing it and you're very confident of your answers, then more power to you. But I'm just saying, for people who may not have a lot of interview experience, it's really, really good to be as prepared as possible. So
have situations ready in your head that you can like use one story and have it so that you can answer many different scenarios with it, I guess. Like
very general, like
right.
Create general scenarios in your head
that you can apply to many. Yeah.
Right. And these are they don't all have to be medical related at all. Especially for those of you who may not have been a CNA before, there's probably not a lot besides nursing school that you have, that you know, scenarios that you can create. So obviously, yes, use your nursing school experience in those scenarios, use your CNA or any sort of medical experience you have, but switch it up. All of mine were not medical related. I threw in a lot of personal life stories or from other jobs I had. Like I talked about when I worked at Justice, which is like limited to like that little girl store. I worked there and I gave examples about that. And so yeah.
Yeah, so all I did was Google behavioral-based interview questions.
There's so many online. Yeah. You don't even have to do the nursing-related ones. They're all super general that you can apply to anything.
So like, for example, this one, the category is teamwork, but within that there's like many questions like, give me an example of a time you faced a conflict while working on a team and how did you handle that? So when you answer these questions, you want to talk about what you did in the scenario, how it ended up, and kind of like what you learned from it. So, you know, even if it's a question about conflict, like, or a time you did something wrong, or I don't know, something like that.
They're going to ask you that, because not all of them are going to be like happy-go-lucky questions. A lot of them be like, tell me a time where you were wrong.
Right.
Don't ever answer like, oh, like I never had an experience like that, because that's not true.
Tell the
We've
truth.
all done something wrong at work or in our personal life that we've had to fix, and they want to hear the story. They want to know your reaction to it, and basically the outcome of the situation. And the outcome should always be positive.
Right, like what you learned from it, or like what you did better the next time you're in that situation.
And if it involves other people, how did it impact them as well? So like, if it was teamwork, if it was a group setting, how did it impact everyone else in the setting as well? So I feel like we can go forever and in depth about this, and maybe one day we can kind of like, we should do a video on like interviewing each other and how we go and how we like react to the questions and stuff. I think it would be great practice.
And another tip is, when you're asked these questions, you can take a second and think about it. You don't have to answer right away. Like, it's totally okay if you take a second.
I've done that many times. I've had to be like, can you just give me 1 minute just to think about what I'm going to say? Because it's always like that one question you didn't write down or you weren't prepared for that they ask you, of course.
And they're totally fine. I've been in interviews and asked them questions before, and they were like, I'll have to get back to you on that, or like, let me think about that.
Exactly. So and they appreciate you doing that, because they know that you're taking these questions seriously into consideration, and you're not just making something up willy-nilly. So
did you want to say anything else about your new grad interview? Just behavioral-based questions.
Right.
And
you want to ask them questions, the hiring manager, the questions about like their unit culture, their diversity on the unit, what kind of things they do to support new grads on the unit, because that's extremely important as a new grad. You have to have a good feeling on whether or not you are going to be supported as a brand new nurse. And obviously you never know until you really get there, but pick the manager's brains and ask them questions, because that gives you really good insight whether or not you want to take that job if you're offered it.
Yep, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you.
Yes. Let's see, what else?
So I recently had several interviews, and they were all very different.
Yes.
So I can talk to
She has amazing examples. And these are all recent. This is coming from an experienced nurse getting a new job and kind of exploring the options that are out there for her. Yeah. So I'm excited.
So I'll just go over a quick brief about each of them. So the first interview I had was actually for the job that I took. It's for a pediatrician's office that Adeline actually goes to, and I was just super impressed by all the staff there, and she sees an NP there, and I always love a practice that also has NPs and PAs, because I think they're so valuable. Anyways, and my interview there was pretty informal. We really just had a discussion, so the manager didn't really ask me any behavioral interview questions or any scenario questions. She was just more interested in my experience and why I was interested in this job, and one of the things I said is I like working with kids, and I used to work with kids and I missed that, and she really appreciated that. So just simple, she was just looking for simple things like that and wanted to get to know me. And then after I had the interview, she invited me to shadow, and then I got an offer after that. So that was the job I actually went with. But in the meantime, I had a few more interviews.
Wait, and I just want to say about that, don't ever be afraid if you're at a doctor's office, if you're like at your general PCP and you're like, man, like this would be a really good place to work. Or if you take your kids to a pediatric office, or like, here's my motto, which you guys will find out soon, but like literally the answer will always be no unless you ask, right? You have nothing to lose. And so what Morgan did was amazing. Like she took the chance and asked if there was a position open, and then now she got it. Like you never know. So if you're somewhere, if you're at a hospital or like whatever, if one of your family members is sick or whatever, and you're in that hospital setting or any medical setting and you feel like maybe like there could be an opportunity there for you, ask the nurse and be like, hey, like, do you know if they're hiring? Like, how can I get in touch with the manager here? And that's what she did, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, so. And I also had to negotiate pay, which was uncomfortable, but they ended up offering me more than they initially did. So I'm really glad I asked, because that was actually going to be a deciding factor in whether I took the job or not. And even though it's uncomfortable to talk about money, I had to do it, and it worked out. So that's awesome. Another thing, like, even though these conversations might be uncomfortable, like, bring these things up. I just, like, asked if there was room for further discussion about the pay.
Right, yeah.
I wasn't like, I can't take this job if that's how much you can pay me. I just said, can we discuss the pay further? So.
Right, yeah. So, again, the answer is always no unless you ask, right?
Yeah. So that was the job I took. And then, like Chrissy said, completely different job that I just was kind of applying for all sorts of different stuff, saying, why not? So I had an interview at a home health agency, which was very different. It was an interesting experience because the manager I was supposed to interview with was sick that day, so I interviewed with somebody who seemed very unprepared. As another point, always bring your resume, a copy, even if they have it, because this lady didn't have my resume. So I was able to give her my resume so she could look at it, and she was just kind of like, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, which I feel like most professional nursing jobs won't ask you that.
They'll ask you in a different way.
Yeah, they'll
not
ask you
straight
in a different
up.
way.
They'll ask you in those behavioral questions.
Yeah.
They won't necessarily ask you straight up in that way, but you will get those kinds of questions.
But I'm glad I had thought about it before and written it down, because like it's hard to say what your weaknesses are. Like you don't want to talk bad about yourself, so like really think about that and like figure out something that you can flip to a positive. What else? And she didn't tell me much about the job, so I had to do a lot of talking and asking questions, which is fine. And then afterwards they made me, they said they were working on an offer, and then I told I spoke with a recruiter for this company, so I told the recruiter that I'd taken the peds job, and she again asked me if I would at least look at the offer, consider the offer, and I said respectfully, I've already taken this job, so thank you for your time, So I left that one on a good note, and the recruiter told me, if I was ever on the job search again, to reach back out. So I left it, I feel like I made a good impression, and I left on a good note.
Never burn your bridges, because you never know what you're going to need in the future. So I think Morgan did a great thing by keeping that relationship there and ending on a good note, because if she were to ever want a job in home, this was a home health one, in the home health one, in a home health setting, maybe in the future that's what you may want. So never burn those bridges.
So another interview I had was for another big hospital in the area. I'll just say it was for a clinic job, but the way they do it is HR like screens the resumes, and then if you pass their screening or whatever, they set you up with one of their like recruiter people from HR. So my initial interview was with somebody from HR, and she did ask me some behavioral based interview questions, and right off the bat she asked me about pay, which again is like uncomfortable to talk about, but you just, it's one of those conversations you have to have. She asked me about my pay, and she told me what the pay would be for this position, and she was like, this is probably going to be too much for you, so if you want, we can stop the interview now. And I was like, okay. But we decided to go on with the interview.
Which I think that was really, like, considerate.
Yeah, because she's like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste the manager's time. But we finished the interview because this counted as like my initial screening. So if I wanted to apply there again, like I would already have this out of the way. I wouldn't have to do the screening again. So anyways, we left the conversation on a note of like, I would get back to her. That I'd get back to her. So I took the peds job, and then I emailed her back and said, you know, at this time I've taken another job, but I got the same good feedback. She said, you know, if I was in the job market again, to reach out again. And anyway, so yeah, I left that one on a good note too. I had another interview, but after I accepted the peds job, I had a phone interview set up for a couple days after I took the peds job. So I interviewed them and said that I had taken another position, and they said, thanks for letting me know. Good luck on your future endeavors. So yeah, it was very different jobs, because the one with Cone was a cardiology clinic. So cardiology clinic, peds, home health, and then the other ones for urgent care that I didn't end up doing the interview. So very versatile, and they were all very different types of interview questions.
Like styles, yeah. That's awesome. And now she's a peds nurse like me. I'm so excited for her. But yeah, so I don't really know. Oh, one of the last thing we want to talk about was what to wear during an interview, because I feel like everyone gets super caught up on that for some reason. I know I did when I first started interviewing.
Did you wear a suit? I think
I wore a suit, guys.
Yeah.
I wore a suit.
I would never.
Yeah, she would have never, right? But that goes with our personalities, though, right? I feel like I'm very extra when it comes to certain things, and Morgan's very simple. So, but like now I know I don't have to wear a suit, and that's where we wanted to talk about is always dress professionally. And for God's sakes, if we have to talk about what professional means, like, that's a problem. But like, professional, like, you know, nothing low cut, like all the above. I'm sure a lot of you know what that means. Some of you might not. If you don't know, just message us. We'll give you clear.
No leggings.
Yeah, no leggings. We'll give you a clear description on what that means.
I love my tattoos, and I don't like hide them, but when I go to an interview, like I'll wear a simple bracelet just so like my tattoo isn't like screaming at them.
I mean, look at me. I have tattoos, but there's no way I would ever show them in an interview. But if you are very confident and feel like your tattoos do not define you in any way, and you want to show them, then go for it. But in my opinion, it just gives people a way to judge you, and I don't like that. So I don't think that people should judge a book by its cover. And so I just kind of go as a blank slate, very neutral, and do it that way. And then later on at work, I'm not afraid to show my tattoos. So, but I wore a suit on my new grad interview. That didn't change anything for me. I don't, you know, if anything, it was a positive. A lot of people would never.
Dress nicer than.
Yeah, when in doubt, dress nicer than what you would every day. We were talking about muted colors. Don't wear anything super outrageous. You know, keep things simple. There was like a 5-piece rule. Like a recruiter told me this one time, but I think it's like you count how many things you're wearing. Like your 1, 2, which is like your earrings, a necklace, and a bracelet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a ring, 5. Like, don't wear any more than that. Like, no bangles, you know, don't overdo it. Be simple. Anyway, that's kind of all we wanted to say about dress code. But if you guys have any questions, please message us, because I feel like we've recently had a lot of interviewing experience that we could hopefully help you with. And what else?
When I shadowed, she didn't tell me right off the bat what to wear,
Shadowing,
so I asked her.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, so I asked her what to wear, and she said scrubs. So when in doubt, just ask. You know, if you're going to be shadowing or filling out paperwork or anything, I don't know, just be conscientious of what you wear.
Yeah. If your interview does not include a shadowing experience, ask, because mine didn't. And my recent like I said, I went from one full position in pediatrics in one of the larger hospitals. I started as a new grad, got some experience there, and then transitioned finally back to which is where I actually, one of my CNA jobs where I started. I kind of knew that I eventually wanted to make my way at some point in my nursing career, so I did that. But from what I understood, I don't think shadowing is a typical opportunity that they offer during interviews, and I asked for it and I was able to get it, and I mainly just wanted to shadow the pediatric units, the main units that I would be in most often, and I ended up loving it and getting a really good idea of what I would be getting myself into. So if you have the opportunity, absolutely take it. If you don't, ask for it.
Yep. I don't think any job would tell you no.
Yeah. There may be some things like paperwork you have to fill out, like HIPAA, you know, stuff like that, but I think that shows them that you are serious in a position, so.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that
that's
concludes
it.
what we wanted to talk about for this time, but thanks for listening and give us your feedback, and we love your input and your interview tips, and that's what this group is all about, is sharing and learning from each other. And
if you have extra, like she was saying, if you have tips that we didn't talk about, comment and let us know, because we would love to share that and put that on our website and kind of get a list of things going from other people's experiences, maybe other things we didn't talk about. And then if you have questions, let us know.
Yay.
Bye.